I'd like to call this meeting to order for the work session on February 28th, 2024 at 9:04 a.m. First up, we have Higgins Lake Geese Relocation, Commissioner Ostergen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm going to just read, I have a, I don't know if Greg's seen that. What ideas up there. I'm going to make a small presentation, but I just want to go through the email that I sent over. Some of this might be repetitive, but I just want to talk a little bit about it. The program has been taking place for the goose relocation on Higgins Lake for the last few years, with the exception of the last two, because the bird disease that's been going on. They haven't allowed us to do any relocation of any birds, including mergansers. Various lake associations are trying to get permission from the DNR to reintroduce it again. The Higgins Lake Swimmers Itch organization has obtained permission to begin relocating merganser ducklings this year, fortunately. And that's a program which I've participated in, and I've actually gone out and helped capture the merganser ducklings and relocate them, which has dramatically reduced swimmers' itch on Higgins Lake. Anyway, a lot of other lake associations are trying to get the goose relocation program reinstituted as well. The attached resolutions that I think everybody has a copy of will help the DNR, help with the DNR, and I'm hoping we can get behind it, all of this as well. We all know what a mess geese present on our lakes, on our docks. You're walking in, tremendous amount of phosphorus is released into the lakes. I think Greg's going to get into a little bit of the details on that. And as long as they aren't relocated on our front lawns, I think it's a good idea to remove the geese. And I hope everybody can get behind this. And now I'd like to have Greg Seemack talk a little bit about the goose relocation program.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to speak at your meeting today. I come before you representing the Higgins Lake Swimmers Itch organization. Our organization is seeking to renew a county resolution that allows the HLSIO to continue to eliminate the Canada geese from our lake. The HLSIO was formed in 2015 to combat a serious health issue that many lakes in northern Michigan have to deal with. That problem is technically called sacarial dermatitis, but it's commonly referred to as swimmer's itch. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that started in 2015. I've been the president of the HLSIO since 2019. Our 8-person board has consisted of local business owners, local political representatives, and local resident volunteers who want the best for our community. Past County Commissioner Chair Bob Snyder was a member of our board until he stepped away recently from public service. Bob was a strong proponent of the HLSIO. In the years prior to 2015, Higgins Lake was adversely affected by swimmer's itch in what was considered by the scientists who evaluated our situation to be epidemic proportions. Swimmer's itch typically presents as a small red welt on skin that was submerged in the water, even for short periods of time. These welts are created by parasites that are part of a cycle where mostly waterfowl pair with specific snails, and where a parasite from an infected waterfowl is released to find their cycle partner snail, which then creates another parasite that leaves the snail looking for another waterfowl. Sometimes this parasite finds a person. It enters a pore, it dies there, and the allergic reaction is called swimmer's itch. It's not uncommon for infected snails to produce 10,000 parasites a day. Some swimmer's itch cases are 10 welts, some 20, but I've seen pictures where people have over 100 such welts, and in the worst cases, people seek medical relief. In 2013, in the Detroit Free Press, there appeared pictures of a small child with dozens of swimmer's itch bites on his legs and torso. He'd been swimming at the South State Park at Higgins Lake. From that time on, there was a reduction in camping at the park and a reduction in general to visitors to the area. Local businesses suffered from this drop in tourism. The HLSIO was formed to use a scientific method of removing the most infectious of the waterfowl, which is the common merganser duck, and swimmer's itch cases began to drop. Our merganser trap and release program allows us to remove the most infectious waterfowl in the parasitic process, which then breaks the cycle. This system has been continued since that time. People talking around the lake in terms of we've got our lake back. People no longer fear going in the water. Although we cannot stop every swimmer's itch case due to infected birds stopping on the lake during migration, the problem has been greatly reduced. Camping occupancy at the state park is back up, and businesses have seen restored revenues. The efforts of the HLSIO have been funded largely by private donations from the Higgins Lake community. Our request for a renewal of the past resolution has absolutely no cost involved to the county, nor any other municipal organization. The community fully funds it. Our board meets year-round to plan activities and research to combat swimmer's itch and interfaces with the DNR to secure permits and coordinates the tasks needed to run the program. One project that HLSIO has done consistently is to reduce the Canada goose population of Higgins Lake. It's been thought that the Canada goose was also a carrier of the swimmer's itch infection. Our original interest was in reducing the swimmer's itch threat. We've also found that lowering the goose population is popular with lake property owners and with the state parks, as it greatly reduces the sanitation problem left behind wherever the geese may be present. It also reduces nutrient load, which contributes to invasive species and problems with increased algae blooms. In the last 2 years, our relocation program for both the merganser ducks and the Canada goose have been suspended by the DNR for fear of spreading a pathogenic strain of avian flu. The reduction of the flu, plus a reevaluation of the merganser duck habits, now allow the DNR to reinstate our merganser relocation program and grants us the opportunity to use the goose permits clause to destroy nests and eggs to minimize the goose population. The resolution we are seeking to be renewed allows us to work on the geese. Our current county resolution authorizing merganser duck relocation still has 1 more year before it needs to be renewed, and I'll probably be back before you again next year to request that renewal also, so that our program can continue to deliver lake activities to our community with minimum threat of swimmer's itch. So today I'm asking that you vote whenever the soonest possible time would be to renew the county's authorization of our ability to work as part of the past to control the goose population, as in the past. I believe that a copy of the proposed resolution is in the possession of Commissioner Ostergren. So if anyone
Yeah, I
has,
want to add also that there are 2 ways that the DNR will allow, or that we can ask for a permit. One of the ways is we get 70% of the lakefront owners sign a petition. I think everybody would know how hard that is, okay? And the other way is to pass a simple resolution. This isn't going to cost the county anything. It's going to enhance the county, in fact. So I urge everyone to support this resolution. I sent a copy everybody. I don't know if Michelle has a copy. Last 2-3 weeks ago, I sent it to Jody and all of the commissioners, so I can get you a copy, Michelle. And I ask that you pass this in the next meeting so we can start on this in the spring. Greg, was there anything else you wanted to add?
no, but if there's any questions anyone would want to ask about HLSIO, I'd be happy to answer them now. All right, well, thank you, anyone. Appreciate your time.
This, dealing with the geese and ducks for swimmer's itch at one time was quite controversial which way to go. Is that not correct?
Oh, it was very controversial.
And that controversy has been settled and
Yes, a long time ago. We got rid of the controversy.
have the townships had a resolution for this? Or are we stepping on their toes beforehand?
No,
If I could answer that.
this is going to require a county resolution.
Yeah, there is really no stipulation in the DNR permitting process for the townships to be involved with this. So we haven't requested anything from them, but I can tell you that quite assuredly that both Lyon and Garish Township are in favor of the HLSIO program.
So right now you're asking for a resolution to remove geese only?
No,
In
no.
the
Yeah,
resolution?
yes, we already have the permit for the merganser ducklings through next year. So we don't need that. We won't need that till next year. Okay, the one for the geese, it has come up and expires this year. That's why we need a new resolution this year. And like I said, there's only two ways that the DNR will grant a permit. And then one of them is the resolution from the county. And the other one is 70% of the lakefront owners.
Geese relocation or whatever has been done in the past?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
The permit expired this last year.
that's what I meant.
We've been doing it, except we haven't been able to do it for the last 2 years because the DNR stopped us from the relocation because of the bird flu or whatever that disease is. So they stopped that. We were really lucky for 2 years as far as the merganser ducklings goes. We didn't have any broods on the lake at all. Last year we had some broods on the lake, but we couldn't remove them. They wouldn't allow us to remove them. So from the positive standpoint is we're hoping that the snail infection rate is way low. And if was way low last year, then it shouldn't be affecting the ducklings as much. So hopefully we may have a little bit of an uptick this year in swimmer's itch, but it isn't going to be as dramatic as it used to be. We were at a epidemic rate a few years ago. It was really bad.
How is it proposed to remove the geese?
I don't know, Greg, how do they remove it? They don't shoot them.
Well, at this point in this year, the geese aren't going to be relocated, but the egg destruction and nest destruction is what we'll be able to do. But in the past, the way that we've done that is we've hired a contractor who does this. A lot of where they remove geese is from golf courses in various places of the state. So they already have a situation where they're involved with doing that in other places. They come in, we kind of identify where the geese are. The geese are herded toward places in the shore where the contractor then picks them up and puts them in a vehicle and takes them to other places where they can be released.
Greg, I also understand that there's quite a bit of phosphorus released in the feces of all of the geese, and that's one of the main reasons we want to get them off the lake. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been said that for every goose that remains on your lake for the season, it's like dumping 2 50-pound bags of fertilizer in your lake. So that does create a buildup of phosphorus, especially, and those things, they support invasive species, they support algae blooms, all the kind of things that nutrient loading does are things that would be enhanced by the geese being on the lake longer. So limiting the geese population helps in that regard.
It's mostly the ducklings that cause the problem because they can't fly. Isn't that correct, Greg?
Well, the ducklings seem to be most easily infected. So removing the ducklings is part of the solution for the merganser part of that problem. And we really don't know why the ducklings are most infected, but we study things like that on a year-to-year basis. We typically do research projects, and we now know, for instance, when ducklings on the lake, and if it is penetrated by an infected snail parasite, how long it takes before the duckling starts infecting other snails. So we study various things in each year in order to try to determine better exactly what we need to do to stop the problem.
So the plan is to remove the eggs or ducklings? The adults
Remove
stay?
geese. The plan is with a permit to remove the geese from the lake. And I believe they do it very humanely, don't they, Greg? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they simply pick them up. Honestly, it's kind of funny when you see it happen. I've been involved with it. The geese are kind of docile. They do a lot of honking, but they just pick them up kind of by the wings and put them in the back of their vehicle, and then they take them to other places where they release them. And again, the permit or the resolution that we're asking to be renewed today is simply for the goose resolution. It doesn't have to do with the merganser duck relocation. That's something that we'll not seek again until next year.
I don't have a problem with the resolution, but Commissioner Wilson brought up a good point. It would be prudent for us to ensure the neighboring townships have a buy-in on this. And I would ask too that they unanimously support this request. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks.
If you'd like, I can get the township supervisors in both Lyon and Garish to write a letter to that effect, that they support this program, and I can get that to you so that you can have it before your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
Next, we have the Roscommon Commission on Aging update, Director Deb Looney. Make sure the mic is on there. Yes.
All right, good morning. I'm Deb Looney. I am a newly elected director of the COA of Roscommon County Commission on Aging back in November. So still pretty new at this, so I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. Just want to give you an update. Our 3 centers are thriving. Our attendance in our activities and our meal program in-house are just, the numbers are awesome. One of our programs that's really kicked off in all 3 centers is our cardio drumming, to the point where we were doing it twice a week, where I was taking the drumming balls and equipment over, and the ladies auxiliary of the VFW seemed to write us a check for $545 to purchase their own balls, buckets, and sticks, and they drum 5 days a week at St. Helen. All age groups. So we're introducing the younger people into our program, and have encouraged them to have a lunch every a meal once in a while with us, just to see, how things operate. So again, everything's good in my world that I see right now. The one thing I do want to let you know, your newsletters that I passed out, and I will have more for the audience. I was approached last month from the Secretary of State out of Gale, and they had recently, a few months earlier, received a grant to do a mobile Secretary of State office. So they asked if I would be interested, and I said, only if you can do it at all 3. What we do for one, we do for all. So they were more than happy. So March 22nd, they're in St. Helen. The 25th, they're in Holton Lake. And on the 26th, they are here in Roscommon. Excuse me. They're there from 10 until 3. And they can do everything they can do in their brick and mortar office that day, including license and everything. So you do have to make an appointment. I'm really happy for Roscommon and St. Helen. I'm happy for Prudenville too, but they already have their building. But I'm really looking forward to this taking off here. Then we'll decide an actual scheduling with them to have it continuous. Now I'm passing it on to
Chrissy. Hi. So I just want to give a little rundown of our financial status here as of the close of January 2024. So looking at our balance sheet, our total assets at the close of January 2024 were $1,706,707 and some change. That's an increase over last year's, which was $1,576,898 and some change. Our cash assets at the close of January 2024 were $722,788 and change. It's an increase of $149,214 and some change over this time last year. I'm kind of looking at October through January last year versus October through January of this year. So the mortgage on the Holton Lake building is currently sitting at $318,295 and change. So that's coming down nicely. And our overall budget performance is favorable by about $138,855 from where we had budgeted. So we're pretty excited about that. And I wanted to cover a few of our numbers as far as what we provide the citizens here in the community. We have delivered 22,545 home delivered meals, again, October to January, which is an increase of 436 meals over last year. So we're pretty excited about that. We also have provided 3,642 hours of in-home services. And that is a increase of approximately 131.5 hours over last year. The huge increase that we're going to see here is in our Serenity Day Lodge. We're currently at 2,226.5 hours that we have provided services at the Day Lodge for 7 participants. That's pretty outstanding. That is an increase of over 1,236 hours. And it increased by 3 participants. That's starting to grow. And finally, at our centers, we have served 9,889 meals, which is an increase of 2,949 meals in our centers over this time last year. So we are really doing well at increasing the awareness, getting more participation, and it looks as though we're about that 250 as far as providing services, so 250 senior citizens is delivering meals and doing in-home services. So that is also increasing. And that is all the information that I have. Any questions?
Thank you. Looks like you got a lot more.
Thank you both again for being here today. It's been a
Absolutely.
pleasure to be on the board for the last 20 years. Deborah, would you do me a favor at your leisure? Would you be so kind just to get a press release in regard to the Secretary of State to the resort?
Already have, it's in the Voice and it will be in the Resorter a
Thank you
week.
so much. Thank you so much. Again, thanks for being here today. Probably go to lunch at Roscommon Center at noon if we get a chance.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Materials Management Plan Implementation. So this is a, we've talked about it a little bit, the new Materials Management Plan for solid waste recycling. I attended a Zoom meeting back on February 13th and 14th regarding the implementation of the program. We have a lot to figure out before July 6th. We either have to file a notice of intent by then, or we will be required to follow the plan that the state sets forth. The state has not written that plan yet, nor will we be able to see that plan prior to July 6th. There's a lot of pros and cons. I know that Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Ostergen were kind of assigned to that committee. I think that you guys should take a look at those segments and presentations. I'll get you the links.
Let's do it at the same time together, so we're not looking at it separate, so we can.
And just to give you an idea, this is it.
It's 2 days.
It's 2 days. Yeah. So, but we're gonna have to make some decisions before July 6th. There's certain protocols that you have to do before, if we decide to do the notice of intent, before you can even do that. And then if we do that, there's specific timelines, and they have those drawn out for you, where you have to hit a benchmark.
I'm sorry. 2 days of training for separating your garbage. Takes that kind of time? Really? Really, I'm serious.
Yeah, there is no bureaucracy like the state of Michigan.
It's pretty easy listening, but it's a lot of information.
Do you have to pass any tests or do anything like
No.
that? Or no
No.
quizzes or nothing like that?
But
Get off yet?
I'm sorry you're taking tests.
there's no test. It's just, and you guys are welcome to look at all of this stuff that I printed. I have notes in there as I went through and looked and listened and things like that I added that weren't in their presentations, and
You're
Yes, you're
very
welcome.
thorough as always.
to all of that information. But again, it's a lot to figure out, and I think that all of us commissioners, I think, are going to have to play some sort of a role in getting this up and going. Any questions or comments?
But life is simpler if we accept their plan, correct?
We don't know that because we have no idea what their plan is. And we will not know that plan before July 6th. They write it after the fact. I can tell you that if we do not accept their plan, there will be no funding or grant funding of any kind that will be awarded to Roscommon County. So in other words, they're really trying each county to develop a plan that is unique for that county based on where we are with recycling.
Madam Chair, isn't this something that is usually handled by the townships? Garbage collection?
I don't know how originally it was handled, but I do know that the materials management, they give the Board of Commissioners the first opportunity to do this. If we were to pass it off to the townships, we ultimately are still the responsible party. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we are beholden to the state's implementation plan, we really want to get involved and write in our own plan. The kicker is if the state's gonna tell us that we can't accept money if we don't accept their plan, isn't this moot?
That's
No,
Russ's
this, so if we write our own plan, there's $60,000 available.
Okay,
If you go into a multi-county plan, then there's an additional 10,000 for each county that is in that multi-county plan. Doesn't mean that the counties have to follow the exact same plan, from my understanding. You can still kind of curtail that to your individual county. And then there's 50 cents per capita based on the 2020 census for the first 3 years that each county will receive. And then there's additional grants that can be applied for. If we do not do our own plan and we take whatever plan the state decides to write for us, none of those monies are available.
okay.
I think we could save ourselves a lot of work by getting together with a couple of companies like Republic or the people that do the regular garbage disposal. Doesn't that make, I mean, I think that would make a
You
lot of
have to
sense.
do it how they have it drawn out.
But they haven't drawn it out.
They have a guideline of the steps that have to be taken. The actual plan isn't drawn out, but your steps on what you have to do.
Yeah, but we need to talk to the professionals that actually do it because they are totally aware of this and they have to have some kind of a plan guidelines rather than us starting it. We don't know anything about garbage collection. I mean, seriously, the collection companies do. So I would think that we should start talking with some of those collection companies because they're gonna come under the same rules.
I would watch and I would read through that stuff first because a lot of those questions are going to be answered in that material.
I think we need to review that information first.
Okay.
My suspicion is you are never gonna get a more lenient plan passed than what the state will impose on you anyway. I mean, and the $60,000 per year is gonna be expended in drafting the plan and stuff. So I think we need to review the information first before we make the decision.
I'm totally confused, but that's okay. I'm always totally confused.
Are there any other questions? Okay. So next we have HyFi lake level monitoring presentation. You can make sure your mic is on and
It's green, so I'm
Okay.
assuming that's on. Cool. It's really quick. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Brandon Wong, the co-founder and CEO of HyFi. We're a startup based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So the trip over here was quite snowy this morning, so that was a fun experience. Especially for me, I've come from California to go to the U of M, so that's a whole new, different type of weather for me. And this is just a couple photos of myself and my advisor when we were starting off. at the University of Michigan. And our focus has been technology, wireless monitoring, and using that from snowpacks to streams. And then one of the things that I've learned since coming to Michigan was this notion of lakes and how life is better at the lake. And one thing that also I've learned recently is about legal lake levels, and how sometimes life is better at the lake maybe is not so much better when they start to deviate from those legal lake levels. But then, bringing them back down within regulation, that's where life is really good. So using that as a lead in, basically how we've been using technologies is to help monitor lakes without having to always be there 24/7, but these monitors can be. So I brought one here just as a demonstration. It really is just imagine your cell phone in a sense. Like what we've done is connected everything to like a cellular modem, and then there is this cone here. It's similar to like a autonomous car that does that adaptive cruise control, like, where it points at the car ahead of you, and then based off of how close or far that car is, then your car adjusts. Well, this does the same thing, but we point it down at the water. And then as the water level goes up and down, then that goes over the cellular network and then goes directly to someone's email, their phone, etc., or a website where someone can look.
So this isn't in the water?
That's correct. It goes
that's
over the water. So one of the things is you saw a picture of me in the stream. There's always stuff that flows through the stream, or when you get a large storm, it could be heavy debris, and that can ruin the sensor when it's in the water.
How far up off the water is it?
So we try to put it at least 2 feet above the water, but it can see as far away as like 30 feet.
Really?
So it has a pretty significant range, and then, yeah, it goes down to like a sub-inch resolution. So, yeah, of course. And one little other nifty thing is there is this bracket here. So we install the bracket first, and I'll show you some additional pictures. But this bracket will go in over the water, and then for anyone who's installing one of these, the last piece is just to clip that right on in. And this screwdriver is fun because it's electric, and like being maybe in a pit stop or something like that, like that'll be done. And so it just takes a few seconds to get it all in secure, and then if there's any issues, I'm sure, like, remember like old school Netflix days, you get a DVD, we'll just send you a new sensor, you can just pop that in. So so yeah, that's basically what's in there. There's solar panels you see, so it's totally wireless. The solar panel will keep the battery topped off. There's no wires you need to plug in, and yeah, you can do like a little magic trick, like no wires above or below or anything like that.
How is that different than the USGS monitoring systems that they have now?
That's a great question. So it's maybe in one sense it's the price of it. I know I've heard quotes for a USGS gauge be on the order of like $15,000 a year. So it's an order of magnitude more affordable than that. But there's also the idea that, I mean, it's easier to maintain, so that should also help reduce the costs. And there's
Was theirs submerged or?
Oh, so yeah, there's a wide variety of ways that the USGS monitors water levels. As far as how it's monitored, for example, like Higgins Lake and the other lakes in this area, I'm not sure how they're doing that, but it's possibly done where it's submerged in the water. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so then yeah, it's a submerged unit in that case.
With this being, out of the water,
Yeah.
and when we have ice movement,
Mhm.
it's too deep enough.
Well, it can definitely be moved above, so that's always an option as well.
Yeah, because you put it by the shoreline, you're gonna get a lot of ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They'll tear it right out.
Yeah. So that's definitely what we've done is in cases like this, we'll put it. This is, for example, a photo of the sensor.
How
over
does wave
Kalamazoo.
action affect this?
How does what?
Wave action.
Wave action. So that's a good question as well. It will, will detect the wave action, but then over time you'll see the statistics, even it out as well. So you'll get like a good sense of like what the peak of the wave
What
is.
averages it out?
That's right. Yeah. So That's one of the things that we're focusing on, hoping to present is this idea of like if there's waves or other sorts of debris, then we can report the debris, or if there's waves, then we can average that out and report like a core number that confidently represents the lake level as opposed to the variations that may be coming around.
And
Do you
birds,
want to put it somewhere you're not going to get any freezing, like for example, at the opening of a dam, or is that where it'd be put, so you're not going to run into the ice problems as much? Or?
Yeah, so that's oftentimes what we do is we'll install it like on a structure. So you'll see this one here. On the next one, here's another assortment of various ways that these have been installed. Oftentimes it's nice to put it on a structure so that it's away from any ice or other sorts of debris. And we know that structure is not going to move either, so that monitor will stay consistent and we'll have a consistent reference point all the time. And then in extreme cases, then we'll just drive a post in there and we have to deal with like maybe ICs and things like that. But ideally, like oftentimes there's a lake level control structure, and that's what's used often to monitor where this
And then we wouldn't have the ice issue to deal with.
birds roosting on this won't affect it?
No. I mean, it may put some, some bird droppings on there, but it'll be fine. Yeah. It's a pretty hardy unit, so should be upset. Perfect, thank you.
How often do they get calibrated?
That's a good question. So the way that we approach this, I mean, we are a startup, so if we are contracted to do the calibration, then we'll go out there as often as need be. Oftentimes it may be like a few times a year where we go out there and recalibrate and check the water levels and things like that. Other times, if it's, to lower the cost, other people can just take their own unit, in which case having someone who's representative for the community, it's on them, and I guess setting up a schedule of that. And even still, if there is someone from the community that does it, they can send us a picture, send us the measurements. We'll use that and make sure that everything is up to the latest calibration.
I assume this is battery operated?
That's right. Yeah.
Life expectancy on battery?
So we've had units like this installed ever since 2020 when we first launched the company. The technologies behind it have been over 10 years before that. But the batteries have lasted, I mean, all the way up until this point at least, so at least 4 years. The idea is that they will last in perpetuity for, I mean, as long as the solar panel keeps working and things like that, right? So assuming the solar panel is taken off, and we're in the night, we report right now every hour on the hour. And it's basically like taking your phone out of airplane mode, watching Netflix for like a minute, and then going back to airplane mode. So assuming that, then the battery lasts for 6 months. And if we want to change just how often or infrequently that we're going to be going in and out of airplane mode, then that will change dynamically how long the battery lasts. But again, the solar panel is there just to help it last long as sun and maybe not a lot of bird droppings. What we do is we also still track the battery level. So if we do see it going down, then we'll send out a unit. It could just get swapped in relatively easy.
The batteries are replaceable. They're not unique to that unit?
So they are unique to that unit. So we just figure like if there's a battery issue, we'll just take the whole unit with us and we'll do a recalibration and do all the other inspections of that unit as well. Because if there's a battery issue, maybe there's some other issues. So we just take the whole unit and even though maybe the battery itself just needs to be replaced, we'll just inspect the entire thing. So, any other questions? Or happy to just continue on. Or
When I was talking to Chase the other day,
Yeah.
Chase, is this the same company that has the other information that we're going to be getting as far as? Yeah, because it sounded to me like what Chase was telling me the other day, there are a lot more services.
Yeah.
For actually, if it was the same price and we're getting a lot more services, that makes a lot of sense.
For sure.
And accuracy, I don't, have you like put two side by side, the USGS submersible type?
I'll just hop in right in here for you. So, I mean, this is just like a little technical spiel of how we collect a lot of data. We put that through, modern day analytics and things like that. And that comes into doing things like doing quality control and checking. So for example, like there may be, like, say a little piece of debris goes underneath the sensor. That's those gray dots above this purple one on the screen. And then so for the first thing is to really just make sure that those are all removed from the signal, so then we get a clean signal. And then the next piece is what we did was we compared that with USGS stations, and that's an overlay of like our data in the pinkish purple line compared with the gray dots in the background. That's the USGS.
Looks like about the same.
So yeah, just an eyeball comparison, they're about the same. If you do the statistics, the R squared and root mean squared values spot on. And then there's other things too where we're highlighting whether it's like a USGS, if there's a government outage, down, or if they're affected by ice, that changes their ability to get into the field. So
In
there's
fact,
another way to do
in
that.
fact, on part of that, it looks like it's a lot lower on a few of the spots there that they would probably be inaccurate compared
That's
to yours,
right.
it looks like.
Yeah, and so we wanted to call that out and just say like, looks like factors compounded where they weren't able to get out there, do some recalibration, and so here we are being able to, one, they had an outage, and two, there's a recalibration needed. So we're seeing those events kind of unfold in this example.
The USGS on when I always get my information, I get it on a daily basis. In other words, the average of the whole day.
Okay.
Do you report that way or can report that way? And then in other parts of the USGS sites, they got it every 15 seconds or whatever. It's all over the place. Can't tell you.
Right. Yeah, so let me see. Basically what we do, yeah, so this doesn't quite answer your question. But what we do is, yeah, we have like a weekly report that can go out, or if you want it daily, then we'll just, that can be set up as well. And if you really just care about like one number, the average over the past day, no problem.
Yeah, the average throughout the day, because you got it bouncing all over the place.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, if it's just a matter of like a text message or an email, however you want it, we can set up a little automated robocall for you if that's what you prefer. So, just let us know what you'd like, and we already have that configured on our end to meet that for your desirements or
And what Chase was talking about is on his website, then he'll be able to automatically grab that data and it'll be inserted. So when people go to it right now, you have to go through all kinds of stuff. The USGS site, very difficult to navigate. Right. Because the data on the USGS site is, you can't do anything with it. You can just look at it. This, it sounds like you're gonna be able to import it into something.
That's right. Yeah, I'll skip through a ton of slides here. So this is an example of getting automated notifications, whether it's from like an email or a text message. Like an example of that, how we were saying like this is the location, here's the value at that time, and then if you want to click through and see it on a website, then that link is there for you. And
The average person get this app, or is this
Sure.
just something that's gonna go to you, Chase?
yeah, so we just need to know where we're sending this data to, so anyone can sign up for it. And
Like that. It's nice.
so, and if you want to, like, for example, if you want the just you want the message and you want it on a say daily basis, that can be set up. Or if other people in this room want it on a weekly basis, however often, then also have that all configured as well. So it's flexible, and the idea is we wanted to make that accessible for whoever wants to see this information, as well as make sure it's managed in a proper fashion.
Where did Chase find you?
So
Amazing.
So yeah, and I was just going to give you some other examples really quick of just we've tested out trail cameras. So on the bottom, I think what we should see here, if you can make me just squint, but we see the water levels going up and down, and there's like various lines of urgency of it being close to that bridge. So combining that with these trail cameras, what we're seeing is this like water levels really shooting up, and even though we're catching it on the data, it's another way of, I think, just conveying what's happening. And that bridge literally was shifted off of its foundation thanks to heavy flows in this.
If someone comes and moves it around, would that really screw up the calibration?
It could, for sure. So
Okay.
that's something to be.
Would you know
about,
that?
Yeah, we'll detect that as well. Right? We'll see like something looks off, the averages look off, or something like that, and we'll be able to, if anything, notify, say, yourself or anyone else on the ground, or again, if we're the ones doing the maintenance of the monitoring, then
It's kind of like putting a board in front of a dam. It changes things.
True.
I sell access control systems that have a battery backup.
Mhm.
And what my system does is when the battery's getting low, it lets you know. Do you know that with your systems if the
Yes.
battery's getting low? I
Exactly.
would figure that you'd have some kind of a sensor there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're basically just tracking the battery levels on board, and then that sends out a similar message. At least, I mean, we have it internally. We try not to bug people with too many other metrics and things like that. But again, too, if that's something that someone wants to know, like I'm in charge of this site, I'd like to know when the battery's going down. I'd like to switch out the battery. But of course, it can be set up no problem.
Eric brought up a good point just now. In regard to transparency, it's important for the public to be privy to the same information that we would be privy to daily basis or an hourly basis, but appreciate your comment.
Cool. Anything else along those lines?
Thank you.
Sounds like a good project. How many lakes do you have in Michigan?
I don't know, Brett, where are we at? We're working on it. I mean, it's growing. So, I mean, whatever I tell you today is going to be changing tomorrow because we just we sent off an invoice for like 5-6 locations on this part of the state, and then there's more going in for Oakland County. So, yeah, whatever number I tell you right now is not going to be accurate in a few weeks. Thank you.
Bunches.
Is this something that's owned or just kind of like used as you just pay for the service?
Yeah,
It's just the tool to use. So that stays your equipment
right.
and then we just pay for the service. Okay.
Correct. Yeah,
So it's not
that's
something we
how-
buy.
Right. Unless that's easier to work with, then we do that on a more like case by case basis. So that's an option as well. We usually just offer it as a service, just like say like an internet, you get a cable box and then you get the internet service.
Well, I think that would help us with obsolescence because maybe in 5 years you'll have a completely new
That's the
mechanism.
idea
anyway.
too, exactly. Like technologies are evolving so rapidly. So then as the new technology comes out, then we can easily get that new technology installed and then, refurbish the old ones and get those up to spec too. So the network can be upgraded, pretty consistently through that method. Yeah, very insightful. So I'll go through maybe one more thing. So this is like with Dearborn, I don't know if flooding is an issue here, but I think the moral of the story I'll get to at the end. They were set up to be a pilot city for the state amongst, so it's Dearborn, Flint, and Marquette, and they're doing things along like smart energy and transportation, and Dearborn wanted to do something on flooding. So a monitoring network went in this summer, and then that following August, they got a ton of rain upstream. So it wasn't even in Dearborn, but in Canton and Inkster, they got a ton of rain. And that resulted in downstream flooding. So you can see like a golf course got flooded out. Now you have a massive water hazard. A football field, now they have to swim laps instead of running. This is the underpass at Telegraph in Michigan. So there's a van that thought it was a boat and tried to drive through there. And we can see like that's the emergency responders. The city can now know when to close off that road, ideally before more traffic is impacted. And they also know when to open it up again. That leads us to the other bridge into Dearborn, where this is the emergency manager for Dearborn looking over the bridge and seeing that the water levels are really shooting up. And it was actually analogous to where we saw that bridge getting lifted up, and that pedestrian bridge is basically the same thing, but this bridge carries traffic. So the question, the thought was they should close off this bridge too, and that means people really are going to have a tough time getting in and out of Dearborn. But then what they were able to do is look at this data. They saw it is trending down, and that there was no more rain coming, so they decided to keep that bridge open. And that meant they didn't need to implement any other processes, notify the public, and do all these other traffic mitigation measures. At the end of it, I think, it was, powerful for us at least to hear was that the director of public works sent us this comment saying like he was raving to us about the mayor, mostly because he had the data to defend like his decision to keep that bridge open. So isn't something that we were expecting to have happen as we were doing this pilot, but I thought it'd be something worth sharing in this, that this data has been used in, this fashion as well. And one more example is like, this is just examples of folks using this for detecting log jams and other things, and it not being constrained to looking at it on a laptop, but also seeing it on your phone. And for these various applications, as well as this is what, for example, it'd look like on a computer, as well as the ability to just see an individual page, download that to an Excel spreadsheet, and then Chase or any other engineer can now work with this data and where that can, what needed to be done with it. Just to tie that up, like here's our team. We're based out of Ann Arbor. We recently were awarded a prize by Verizon, so that should also, if anything, mean like our network connectivity is solid through them. Like we are a preferred partner. If there is an outage, we are the first ones to get their emergency access. So that will ensure like the data is coming through, like, even during like extreme events, extreme weather events, etc. And then we've built a lot of partners throughout the state to make sure that this works. Like that sensor was, machined in Michigan. The circuit board is made in Michigan. We assemble it in Ann Arbor. So, we've been able to work with a lot of communities throughout this state to make this happen. It's been expanding from Michigan to Ohio. We have places in New York. We're about to kick off some pilots in Chicago and New Orleans. So, if anything, like this data has enabled us to really launch into something exciting here, and hopefully this is a good sign of things to come and what we can accomplish here.
Hey, thanks for your presentation. We're really blessed, I think, to have delegated authority like Chase now working. We're not to pump them up or nothing, but I think we're really headed down the right track with all the new technologies that he'll be aware of and what's going on, and
Definitely
really, really happy with it.
excited to hear
Thank
that.
you.
They're right around the same price, from what I understood. He said earlier, right around the same price as the USGS. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For the whole year, we save $5. Oh, okay. You recommend 1 or 2 or 3 monitoring devices on the lake, because on the north side, it's going to be completely different than it is on the south side, but it could be an inch or 2.
Well, what they're saying.
Right. Right. What do you recommend as far as number of points on each lake? In other words, like Houghton is even twice the size surface area.
Yeah. Chase, you gotta
Mine's
come
on.
up here and sit at the front table.
Oh,
Well, they can't hear you and so you're not being video.
Jay Shepke, Delegate Authority. Yeah, the big thing was the technology, the accessibility. USGS is it's USGS. It's what they want to put on there. It's how they want viewed. This, we can ask, do it in whatever way we want. We can ask text updates. You don't have to go and check USGS every morning. Wondering what's going on with the lake. You can have a text update. Very convenient and simple. As far as points, that would come up to you guys about locations or how many you would want. Cost wise, that would come up to you guys. But again, for USGS for 1 point, for this for 1 point, you're talking it's about the same price, if not a little cheaper.
Okay.
Up until my new phone, I used to get daily Texas. You know, I don't believe them.
Mm-mm. You'd have to come up.
Do they trust you?
We- Chase, we can't have the talking out there. Sorry, guys.
You have to take it off.
Any other questions? Okay, this meeting is adjourned till 10:10. And 12 a.m. Commissioner Russo, would you like to? Roll call of board members.
Wolfson,
Yes.
Ostergren, Censor,
Here.
Milburn, Russo.
Here.
Approval of the agenda. Are there any deletions or additions to the agenda before we approve it? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move as presented.
Discussion? Roll call?
Madam Chair,
Yes. Oh, sorry.
typically, I've always felt very uncomfortable going into closed session. Can I be rest assured today that what we discussed in closed session will be confidential in nature and that we must do this in order to, transparency obviously is the key. I can be assured I can vote on this. I must be assured that this is something that is just going to be important to us, not necessarily to the public at this juncture.
From my understanding of it, it is a written legal opinion, and the attorney has advised that we do it in a closed session.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion?
What attorney?
Casey is on.
Lucy,
Stacy, okay.
roll call?
Ostergren,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
Wolfson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Approval of the consent agenda. The items in the consent agenda were provided to you in your packets. They include the meeting minutes from February 14th, 2024 regular meeting and February 14th, 2024 special lake level control structure meeting, your correspondences A through E in the monthly department reports for the animal shelter, economic development, sheriff, and our administrator controller report.
So move.
Discussion? Roll call?
Milburn,
Yes.
Wolfson, Censor,
Yes.
Ostergren,
Yes.
Russo.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Public comment. Is there any public comment? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. Request for closed session under Open Meetings Act, Section 15.268 subsection H to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute, attorney-client privilege, and attorney work product privilege for the purpose of discussing the SAD factors and weights for Houghton Lake. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Discussion?
Like to reiterate, it says Houghton Lake only.
Yes. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Ostergren,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Wolfson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I guess we need to shut the system down and then we need to clear out everyone except for the attorneys.
Really?
Don't leave, don't leave her. Don't leave.
It's up to you. You can stay or you can leave. It's up to you. Okay. moved to come out of the closed session at 11:56 a.m. and go into an open session at 12:10 p.m. We are at visitors. Do we have any visitors? Stacy, did you want to make that statement? We'll have you do that now. That way, if you didn't want to stay the whole meeting, you don't have to.
Okay. Thank you. So, just to give an update with regard to Houghton Lake, we've made good progress with regard to the special assessment rule. And after having conversation with the county board, it looks like the next step in coordination with the delegated authority will, in addition to put the actual factors for the special assessment rule up on the county website, the lake level website, excuse me, within the next month. So we are moving forward with that, and we'll let the board know once those factors are on the website.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unfinished business. Delegated authority service agreement update. Rex. Commissioner Wilson.
Last week, Jay Sepke signed the delegated authority service agreement, which includes all 3 lakes now. The only thing that changed on it was a mutual indemnification paragraph in a sentence that reaffirms that Roscommon County is responsible for the lake level. There is also an understanding that on Higgins Lake at this point, his duties to us is to monitor the lake level and boards in, boards out, whatever on that. Any questions?
New business, we didn't.
I have a question on unfinished business. Even though it isn't listed there, I know at the last meeting, Mark brought up some things about, yesterday, if everybody doesn't know, the millage on the,
We needed to add it under unfinished business before we approve the agenda.
okay, so we're not gonna talk about any of that?
No.
Okay.
What I could, Madam Chair, is Mr. Ostergen mentioned it during board comments.
Okay, I'll do it.
New business, we had none. Motions, resolutions. Whenever our clerk is ready.
Motion number 1, move to implement a default employee contribution rate of 5% for Roscommon County's Municipal Employees Retirement System of Michigan, MERS, Defined Contribution Retirement Plan, Division 106901, to ensure compliance with the cash or deferred arrangements, CODA IRS regulations. Per the MERS DC plan document, the default employee contribution rate will apply to any eligible rehired employee, any eligible employee who transfers from another Roscommon County MERS division to Division 106901, and any newly hired eligible employee who fails to make a valid election of the mandatory employee contribution rates offered by Roscommon County in Division 106901 within the time permitted by the MERS.
We'll move.
Second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ostergren,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
Wolfson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Motion 2, move to approve the reappointment of Vijay Kumar to the Roscommon County Economic Development Board for a 3-year term beginning 2/28/2024 and ending 2/27/2027.
So move.
Discussion.
But I meant with your permission, Madam Chair, both VJ, Catherine, and Wendy, the following motions, they're all excellent candidates. Thank you.
Roll call.
Milburn,
Yes.
Ostergren,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
Wolfson,
Yes.
Russo.
Yes.
Motion carried. Motion number 3, move to approve the reappointment of Catherine Methner to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board for a 3-year term beginning 2/28/2024 and ending 10/31/2027.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Russo,
Yes.
Ostergren,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
Wolfson,
Yes.
Milburn.
Yes.
Motion carried. Motion number 4, move to approve the reappointment of Wendy Engel to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board for a 3-year term beginning 2/28/2024 and ending 10/31/2027.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Censor,
Yes.
Ostergren,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Wolfson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Motion number 5, move to approve the proposed employment agreement between Roscommon County and Jody L. Valentino for the purpose of employment as the Administrator Controller for Roscommon County, Michigan, to perform all of the functions and duties specified by law and other legally permissible and proper duties and functions as the Roscommon County Board of Commissioners shall from time to time assign by resolution. Upon approval and acceptance, this agreement will remain in effect through midnight on February 28, 2027.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
I would just like to say, Jody, you do a really good job for us. Thank you very much.
I would agree with that. Roll call, please?
Wolfson,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
Ostergren,
I'm thinking about it. No, yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Milburn.
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Carried.
We are now at committee reports. Commissioner Ostergren, you want to start?
Yeah. Here, Community Mental Health Association meeting on 2/15/24. I was not able to attend in person because we had that snowstorm that day. Almost everybody else did, but I did attend via Zoom. It's quite a lengthy meeting. Some of the notes that I took out of there, we're losing the crisis residential unit. There's not enough people staying there. And it was a $3.4 million a year venture, and it was federal grant money, and now we're losing it. So however the management got handled with that up there, I don't know, but that's what's going. It's I think it was probably improperly managed. Nobody's taking responsibility, but we'll find out what happens. The need for patient portals so people can view what's going on with their file that are being taken care of there. That was brought up. Almost all medical fields today, you can go out on a portal and see what's going on. Well, they don't have that set up there yet. So that was expressed that we need something for that. The CFO and CEO filed their reports in committee of the whole instead of the regular board meeting. I don't know why that was happening, but it did. And the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic is going to, they're going to consider if we can be certified to be able to serve more people. So that process is an ongoing process. Second thing, been working on these. I got 3 really nice certificates from FEMA here. The first one is, it took quite a bit of work, having to go online and do a lot of work. It's Introduction to Incident Command System, ICS 100, and then ICS 200 for the same basic incident command system. And this one is on the National Response Framework. How to get these put up in my office so they look nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. You don't want to be taking them tests. They're miserable. The lake level issues, or the lake level right now on Higgins Lake, gauge is at 4.95, which is 5.04 below summer level or 0.96 above winter drawdown. Last year, it was only 2.64 inches below legal level, 3.36 inches above maximum winter drawdown, or a 2.4 inch difference. Higgins Lake is in compliance, being taken care of well. According to the legal court order. Holton Lake gauge level is currently at 7.9 or 2.4 inches below summer level. And that's 3.6 inches above the maximum winter drawdown. Last year, it was only 1.32 inches below summer level, or 4.68 inches above maximum winter drawdown, for a difference of 1.08 inches. And they are in compliance with the court order. Lake St. Helen gauge is at 6.05, which is 2.28 inches below summer level, or 3.72 inches below maximum winter drawdown. Last year, they were at 6.01, or 2.76 inches below summer level, or 3.24 inches above maximum winter drawdown, a 0.48 inch difference, and they are in compliance also with the court order. So we're all in good shape there. Thank you.
Commissioner Milburn?
Commissioner on Aging, Deborah and Tracy gave a good report on that this morning. Economic development, very busy. I'm gonna ask Brenda to come in and give a compilation of what's transpiring. Went down to Lansing yesterday and met with Representative Ken Borden regard to Emery Road. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Russo?
Nothing in the past 2 weeks.
Commissioner Wilson?
I was not able to attend the household hazardous waste because of our meeting.
I attended a meeting, the agenda meeting, on February 15th. Went through the Zoom presentation on the materials management plan, which over the course of 2 days is about a little over 8 hours of watching. And the Houghton Lake Improvement Board meeting on February 15th, RLS was there and spoke about where Houghton Lake currently is regarding invasive species. We went over the 2024 budget and board rules with revisions to come in the future. Board comment. Commissioner Ostergen?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I want to talk about what Commissioner Milburn talked about at our last meeting regarding the security millage. By the way, it didn't pass last night, and I'm sorry for that. But before we passed the millage proposal that we were put on the ballot, originally wanted to ask for less of a millage increase by reducing the general fund budget by 1 mil, because we were going to remove the 1.26 mils from the general fund millage by removing the security portion from the general fund and increasing the security portion to 2 mils. That's what the election was about. If it would have passed, the security portion would have increased our millage by 58.7% for the security portion. The current general fund millage is 5.85 mils, and this would have created a windfall for the general fund of 1.26 mils, or an increase from 4.59 to 5.85, an increase of 27.4%. I argued at that time that it would be irresponsible to ask for such a huge increase on our taxpayers and propose that we reduce the general fund millage by 1 mil if we're going to ask for a big increase in security while removing it from the general fund, which was 1.26 mil. Couldn't get any support from the board at that time, and the idea was killed. And I voted against the millage proposal because we weren't going to ask for a reduction in the general fund millage, and I was the only one to vote against that proposal. Then in our last meeting, I was happy to hear that Commissioner Milburn supported my idea, even though he originally didn't provide any support in the original millage idea I proposed. Anyway, I'm glad that he likes what I supported, and he's now coming up with a proposal of his own, and hopefully we can work together. I have some additional ideas so we can move forward with the next proposal for the millage. This coming election in August, I believe, is the next time we can have anything out about the millage. Am I correct on that, Michelle? Okay. And the next time, hopefully we can get something passed. I think we're going to have to ask for a little bit less than we did this last time. I think it's obvious what the voters said in this millage proposal, that we got a long way to go. And we need to ask for get a half a loaf rather than a full loaf. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Milburn?
No, I think at this time.
I'm good.
Do we have any public comment at this time?
I just wanted to give you a quick, Michelle Stevenson, County Clerk. just a quick update. So as you all are aware, this was the first election where it was mandated 9 days of early voting throughout the entire state of Michigan. And in Roscommon County, there was a total of 568 early voters throughout the county. And 11 of those were people who had received an AV ballot, and then they went in and they processed their AV ballot through the early voting polling location. Yesterday was the election, and as was mentioned, the public safety proposal was defeated. The spongy moth suppression program passed.
Michelle, what was the spongy moth?
That was mine.
So for public safety, we had 2,822 yes votes, 4,349 no votes. For spongy moth, we had 4,046 yes votes, 3,119 no votes. And then Bacchus Township, they had an ambulance and a fire protection millages, and those both passed. Lake Township had a fire protection millage, and that also passed. The Core ISD proposal, while at the beginning of the meetings today, I was still waiting for results from a couple of small jurisdictions. But at the time I had, it was 4,999 yes votes and 6,668 no votes. And so the jurisdictions that I'm still waiting to hear from would not negate that difference. So that proposal also failed. And of course, these are all unofficial results. The canvassers are scheduled to meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Unfortunately, we will not be able to certify the election tomorrow because there is a signature cure notice out, and what that is anybody who has an AV ballot, if they've returned their AV ballot and there's any issue with the signature on the envelope, they have up until 3 days following the election to resolve that issue. And if it has not been resolved, we can't, until after that 3 days, we can't certify the election. And then if we have any outstanding moved ballots, which are military and overseas ballots, we cannot certify the election until 6 days following the election day, because if that ballot is postmarked on election day, it has up to 6 days to be returned to us, and then the Board of Canvassers would have to add that. So we do have an outstanding move ballot. So the Roscommon County Board of Canvassers will meet tomorrow because by statute, they are required to begin the canvass at 9 o'clock the Thursday following an election. However, they will not be able to certify the election until next week on Tuesday. And ask me questions during public comment.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm hands up now. How do people know that they have it?
You can't ask during public comment. You can't go back and forth.
Oh, I'm
She's
sorry,
like
this
a
is
public
this is
comment.
Public comment. Okay. Okay.
Is there any other public comment? Anybody on Zoom? With no further public comment, this meeting is adjourned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we will meet back here in 5 minutes for our budget and finance committee of the whole meeting. This meeting to order, the Budget and Finance Committee of the Whole for Roscommon County Board of Commissioners at 12:35. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Russo.
Here.
Ostergren. Yeah, you. Ostergren. Just say. Wolfson.
Here.
Milburn.
Here.
Spencer.
Here. Approval of the agenda.
So move as presented.
Second. Discussion. Roll call?
Milburn,
Yes.
Wolfson,
Yes.
Ostergren,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Censor,
Yes.
motion carried.
Public comment for agenda items only. Is there any public comment? New business, Roscommon County 2023 year-end closing process. Yes.
I know Tim wants one of these, so I'll do this and then I'll. So for 2023, obviously everything's unaudited. Our audit won't happen until May or June. That being said, just a brief update. This doesn't have any final revenue or expense accruals. As a reminder to you, we accrue any bills or any expenses that are found in January, February, and March that were for December, November for 2023 expenditures. Those will get accrued back into 2023. Essentially, it's the absolute boring process of going through every stack of bills that we have, checking the invoice date, the order date, and then marking those in, then I'll journal entry those back in. I've had it be low, 89,000. Last year, we had a bill from the state of Michigan for the child care fund that was like 125,000 because the state of Michigan is notorious in back billing us. So it can be big or it can be small. So we're in the process right now of, we know that we began January 1, 2023 with our audit approved fund balance of $1,197,849.09. As of right now, our revenues that are in our revenues and expenditures are going to be really close to each other. Looking at a difference of roughly $44,000. That anticipates that our fund balance will end up about $1,241,806.73. That does not include then a transfer in for the SAD districts and all the expenses that have come from there from the tax payment fund. Ideally, unless there's things out there that haven't come in that I have not heard about from some of my off-lay departments, we should be actually looking at a fund balance slightly above 15%, give or take. Last couple of years, I've been right on. I've had one year where I wasn't right on. I was a couple percentages down, and it was a bit shocking. That puts us in a really good position for 2024. And as I finish up the accruals in March, I will give you an idea of what those numbers change in that first April meeting that we have scheduled for this, of where those numbers look like they may have changed. So.
I have a question, please. This is the fund balance for 2023.
Yes, this would be what our ending fund balance of 2023 is anticipated to be.
Okay. And some of our employees' extra money is coming from that year's,
We were
if
going to,
possible.
yep, what I think, if I believe in what the intent of the board was, is that you were going to have in November, we'd be doing an estimate of where we were at right then, if I'm correct, or what that estimated fund balance was, and as long as we're above 15% at that time, that you would look at that additional allocation. So this puts us in a much better position than we thought.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, this is what we work so hard at, I think, is to get that 15%, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And that's nice that we accomplished that. Thanks.
Any other questions? Item B, Roscommon County 2024 budget review.
Now, Andy. We tried to print out these lovely spreadsheets for you. Rex, I'll give you mine because I know you hate things on the TV later. But so I just tried to do, not really knowing exactly what a monthly or bi-monthly budget summary report for this board should look like. I did my best to try to come up with a brief snapshot for you of all of this. Next slide, please, sir. This is fun.
Good Lord, I need another set of bifocals.
Yeah, you will, and I'll email out, I will email this out to all you too. So essentially what I just did was I took all of the data that you see when I emailed you out the budget and put it into a summary format. Just so you could have a general idea what it would look like, where we're at budget to total to date. Beginning of the year, first quarter is a very hard quarter for you guys to look at and have an idea of where we're going, because we don't really spend anything in the first 3 months. You'll see a little bit of a rush in January for things that people held out on their last budget for and want to start the year with. But for instance, for revenues for the general funds, 3.53 is horrendous when you consider we're 16.6% into our budget year, but we collect those taxes in the summer. So the majority of, a little less than half, 46% of our total revenues for the general fund are not collected till the middle of the summer. My caveat to that is why the tax payment fund having funding in it continuously is important, because that's our cash flow for the general fund. As you go down, you'll notice there's some of these that we simply have a fiscal obligation to. Obviously, we don't tell the county road commission how to spend their money, but we do collect their monies and dish them back out to them. Sometimes we are still responsible if they overspend. Looking at Marcy because we've had this. Commission on Aging, which is 283 towards the bottom of the page. They're a good example of that. We receive in their funding for their millage, and then they send requests over to the treasurer's office for that. As of right now, they've had 66.89% of their funds distributed to them. It is our treasurer's department's responsibility, and then my responsibility to keep an eye on their cash behind that, to make sure that there is still enough funding left in there for when we have to reissue taxes. Like if someone has a PRE that we have denied, and then they win, we actually would owe them money back, or if they have a change in status. So we have to make sure there's a little bit of money left in those special funds for that. Other areas that have the larger numbers to them, animal control millage, your spending mouse suppression, veterans, those are all ones, Sheriff Road Patrol, 911, special road millage. Those are all departments that taxes are collected in the winters. So that money has started to roll in basically. And most of those are almost fully funded by those. So next slide, please. I knew you'd like those. So this is the fund graph. And obviously this is just set up by the department numbers on there. And like I said, I will email this to you so you guys have this to look over, and then you can email me questions as well. And yes, Tim, I'll put it up on the website as well. I know you'll want to look at it. The blue bars that you see are where your budgets are. The orange is where we are total to date. Obviously, you can see just looking across the board that 101, which is your general fund, is the largest expense or largest revenues that come in, which of course then make it the largest expense. The second one is 201, and 201 is actually the road commission, the money that comes in for the road commission that we distribute as well. But all across the board, everyone is doing pretty well. So those are nice things. Next slide. These teeny tiny numbers are fund expenses to date. And again, this is by fund, not by general fund department for you. And this just basically is telling you, again, where we're at versus budget. It's just that summarized versus all those additional lines for you as well. So for the most part, the only outlier that we currently have, give or take, are the law library and Veterans Affairs. The Roscommon County Commission on Aging, like I said, they take distributions from us for their funding. So you'll see that always be a little bit larger. It'll be 100% sooner before later. And their fiscal year runs a little bit differently as well. So with the law library right now, Commissioner Wolfson and I have been talking about this. So I peeked back real quick just to see, we did not have, and this is somewhere else on the side, but we did not have the contract change that did not go into effect until February. So we were a little bit higher from that. Plus there is $1,000 bill that needs to be accrued back. So that being said, I'll have to look at the cash on the law library when I do those accruals to make sure that they have enough funding. Veterans is a little bit higher at this point. They have already paid for their spring trainings that come through. That includes airfare and hotels for a week and a half for 3 people. So they've got a little bit larger expenditures. Plus, they've already had 2 large heating assistances that they have done as well for that. Next slide. Same type of graph. All of your blue represents the total budget, and then the orange on that shows you how much of that budget that each of the funds have used to date. Again, 16.6% is roughly where you're at by the end of February as you're looking into this. And there's just a couple of them that look as if, those ones I just mentioned that are a little bit over that percentage marker. The general fund is doing really well for the first 2 months, but like I said, it gets a lot busier come the end of spring. So, next slide. This one's a little easier to read because not every fund pays payroll to you. So this is just the totals of the payroll cost to date by fund for you. So we have roughly 10 funds that we pay payroll out of. And of those 10 funds, the largest percentage of payroll that we traditionally pay, as you'll see on the next graph, is going to be that general fund. For the most part, everybody is right on course. There are a couple that are a little bit under. Sheriff's Road Patrol is currently under. They do not see that overtime take up until summertime. And that's when you'll see kind of a pickup in their numbers. The payroll costs include everything associated with payroll, including payroll taxes and overtime, as well as longevity. But for the most part, everybody's sitting pretty well. Automation is an area that is a little different. We do a reimbursement to the general fund for actual wages utilized for automation projects. So that one will stay zero for a while until something happens. That's also the same with concealed pistols licensing as well. Corrections training, they are actually don't have enough revenues in there, but this is for training that is to benefit the corrections officers' care of our inmates. So as of right now, we don't have any training that has been directly associated with that either. Next slide. Same information in a pretty graph. The general fund, again, like I said, as you look through that general fund, the 101 is where you have your largest budgeted payroll expenses for. As a reminder, and for the public's knowledge, this is inclusive of everything on this end, your county clerk, register of deeds, treasurers, IT, all of the court staffing, all of your security staffing, and jail corrections as well. So that's one of the reasons. And then of course, the next highest is going to be your Sheriff's Road Patrol as well, but it's not even half of the total costs. Next, please. Another one that's a little bit easier to read. This is total benefit cost to date. So it includes all of your healthcare, vision, dental, and your short-term disability and life insurance that we pay to all of the employees for Roscommon County. I have this broken down by fund for you again. Again, your general fund is going to be your largest because that is the crux of the mandated services that are performed by counties in Michigan as well. Same thing, you're looking at roughly a 16.6%. Friend of the court is slightly higher, but we had an individual who had signed up. When we're doing the budgeting process, we are taking a snapshot of where we are during the budget for all of the employees. If we have an open position, we always budget in a family for that one. But we had somebody during open enrollment add a child, so that changed the percentage as it comes up from there. So they will monitor their budget to make sure that takes place properly. Again, another pretty graph.
Looks like we're trending really low.
We tend to trend really low in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
you get a much better come 4th of July, we'll have a much better idea because that's when you start to see, but benefit costs, and you can see through the chart here, and then our retirement costs are also both doing really well right now. One of our things is we did have a couple of positions that are retiring that chose that after we threw the budget in, so that's changing from a defined benefit to a defined contribution for us. If you go to the next slide, Mr. Andy, please. You're doing a great job, Andy. Thank you. So overall, we are doing really well as far as what we have budgeted for retirement costs to date. One of the things that Noelle had mentioned in her presentation 2 weeks ago is when we do our budgeting for open positions, we always assume a 5% increase or a 5% when we take those into account. If we have positions that are not currently filled, obviously we're not going to be paying that 5% in as well. So that's where you'll see some of the drops. This one is one contribution behind, but it will still put us more towards like a 12% average across the board. It's just when payroll is run, which payroll was run last week, Noelle has to finalize all the paperwork before she sends that money, scoops that money out and actually sends a check over to the MERS divisions for that payment, but we'll still be really good for that as well. And then your Sheriff Road Patrol has your most of the defined benefit in there. And part of this is they're still understaffed by a couple deputies. And so we'll see a lower tick with that as well. The next slide, same pretty slides. And again, you'll see that the most of our retirement expenses do come from where we have the majority of the population of our employees, which is the general fund. Sheriff Road Patrol is about half of that. And the big distinction in that and why you wouldn't have see that a little lower, like for instance, Central Dispatch, is simply because they have the defined benefit and not the defined contribution. So most of the blue line you see for general is defined contribution, with maybe 12 people who are still in or grandfathered into the defined benefit plan as well. So the next couple slides are a breakdown of all of the department expenses summarized for the general funds. I know it's hard to read from where you are, so I apologize for that. Some of the areas that are a little bit higher. The mailroom, oddly, is slightly high, but we have already had a large jury mailing that has gone out. So we've got 2 actually so far this year. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, they already have March's on it. Okay, so they're already into April mailings, basically. So
We sent on the mailing for the village too, right?
Yes, but we paid for that under a different
fund?
Yeah,
Okay.
so when you look at yours where it says Board of Commissioners, there is a line item in the budget that actually is a miscellaneous expenses. And that covers those mailings for that and the flyers as well. I coupled those together for you. So those are coupled together in there. Then we also have general overall, I think everybody's doing really well. Dive team has already been called out on dives this year on two separate incidences so far. So you're seeing the payroll that goes along with that. Now, they're not necessarily going to be paid for dives that happen in our county. I believe one was our county and one was
Well, they were both our county.
were they? Okay.
Well, we had to go into another county to get back into ours, correct?
Yeah, so one was horrible.
Yeah.
One was officially.
Okay. So we'll say yes, they've both been in our county for the purposes of today. On the next slide is just a continuation of the general fund departments. Some of the more important ones on this, your corrections department, jail, is doing really well. I mean, they're at 15.28%. I know that you did receive Lieutenant Beck's report with this, and our total inmate population is a little higher than it was at the end of the year last year, so that's a positive thing. Obviously, we also have the drain commissioner is a little bit higher just because we've already paid for that BSNA software for special assessments. Fun note for that, we will be able to use that for tracking of the lake special assessments too, and there won't be an additional cost for setup. It'll have all been borne out of the Drain Commission. Chase is super excited. I'm making him go to training with us. The next couple ones that you'll see as they come down here, obviously the lake level control structures, we've already had some expenses come out of that for this year. And pre-warning for that, you guys will want to probably discuss at your next work session the HyFi and whether or not you'd like to implement that, because it is roughly March when we get sent that agreement with USGS. So we either have to enter into another year with them, or you guys will have to do something different. So that's in there for you. Michigan, MCOG, the Eastern Michigan Planning and Development, we've already sent a 50% of our total annual fee to them. One of the ones that I will call to your attention is towards the bottom, 992, is units workman's compensation insurance. So we do not budget for the workman's compensation insurance. What I do is I pay it out in full, and then I go forward when they do our work comp audit, which they're doing right now, and divvy it up by department and by fund, so that each is getting held accountable for what they're being charged for, basically, in overseeing those. So you'll see that zero out by the end of the year once we get that audit information back in. Most of the others that you see at the end are all going to be money that we give to somebody else. The only one so far that I have appropriated to date is the quarterly pay to the liquor tax, which is NMC, Northern Michigan Community, NMEC, NMCE. I can never remember the exact things. So, but overall, our total expenditures to date for the general fund are right at 15.4%. So again, trending really well. I like to see them lower, because then if we have a high summer, we go. So, yes.
Time for questions, okay. On the Wi-Fi thing for the lakes.
Yes, sir.
You say the USGS is coming up in March. Do we have to do a motion, or is that just something we tell you to do, or?
No, I think that needs to be a board decision.
Okay, so is that gonna be in the motion? So if it's March, we gotta get right on top of it right now, so.
Yeah,
I
my
would
thought
propose
was,
that be put on our next agenda.
We'll work that out.
Okay, well, that's why
Yeah.
we're talking.
but yes, you are correct. It's coming soon. Next slide.
Maybe the USGS would let us slide for a couple of weeks.
I'm gonna go with no. The next slide is just another graph for you of the expenditures, but for the general fund departments. The really long blue one in the middle is the jail. That is your corrections. That is a portion of the general fund that would have been covered through public safety, but obviously we'll be looking probably middle of the year for where we need to trim for going into 2025. We'll have to start that a little earlier. Little bit of the same for the next two slides. Oops, I lied. This one I'll fit on one. Revenues to date for your general fund departments. Again, this is low. It's always low at the beginning of the year, mostly because of taxes, but also because a lot of the things that happen. I like to pick on Michelle's. Just as a for instance, like your clerk register of deeds, this is not the busy time in register of deeds. So that picks up a little bit later, and that's pretty much so par for the course as they come across. However, your election revenues are up. So we're gonna have to look at that, yeah, and see if somebody put something in the wrong spot. So, but overall, it's doing pretty good. One of the main areas that tends to breed pretty consistent year round is our district court, and they are currently at 13.23, which is a little higher than they have been, about 1.5% higher than they have been the last few years. I think that may be based on better budgeting with the new trends. Danielle has tried, and her staff try their very best to, if it's a must collect, there is a must collect. They do a really great job in there. But like last year, the budget was cut short for revenues by a lot of the changes made at the state level. So this number appeared a little bit lower. So that's trending really well as far as everything goes. So,
I helped them out with $725.
thank you. I appreciate your contribution to the general fund. The next slide just shows you again, the majority of revenues that come in by departments. Obviously the primary, which is where we have our taxes that come in for our general fund. That is also where all of the money comes in that is associated with the county revenue sharing that we get with the state. Your next larger ones basically are everything that you can see, your clerk, register of deeds, treasurers, that is, that sounds kind of funny when I say that, but that is statutorily, basically what Rebecca does is she utilizes the interest that she gets from her tax money to fund her department. So that is why you see that blue line there. So one of the reasons a good treasurer and a good register of deeds are important for your county businesses. District obviously is a little bit higher as well. And then corrections is also up there on the list. Next slide is just kind of a fun summary. So our revenues overall, they are comparable to trends for the beginning of the year that we have seen as we've rolled through. The general fund revenues remain low, but as I said, that's really until summer taxes are collected, and then you'll see that big jump as the taxes start to come in. As far as the expenses go, end of February are trending lower than that expected 16.6%. We do have some outlying funds, the law library, as we mentioned, and the Commission on Aging, which is based on allocation for that one. Payroll for all of our funds is below budget in all areas. Costs related to overtime traditionally do spike May through September, and that's obviously, as everything spikes through here, you'll see that's the busy time for our sheriff's department and lots of events and lots of additional requests for assistance. We are also looking at our benefits trending an average of 13.4% over the 16.6% that we've budgeted for based on the year. Those are, again, based on what current employee enrollment choices are at the time of our actual budget process. And then the overall cost for the defined contribution and defined benefit retirements are at 6.59%, so roughly 10% of budgeted costs were below. The next slide just gives you overall general fund expenses as budgeted, just to kind of give you that quick snapshot of where all of the money that comes in, because people always say, where do my tax dollars go? What do they spend towards? So that kind of gives you a good idea of how that money is broken up and which departments receive the most out of that money that comes in when people are looking at ad valorem tax that they receive on their tax bill in the summer. So that's where it goes. And then the very last slide, and Andy, you've done fabulously again. Our corrections jail is our largest general fund expense. It's currently in line with the 2024 revenues and expenses as budgeted. The allocations are distributed quarterly and are not reflected in the current budget totals. Obviously, transferring out $250,000 will change that number. The areas that we allocate to are our child care fund, MIDC, law library, airport, landfill, mental health, and community health. Potential areas of concern for budgeting are really going to be centered on any unplanned building expenses. So if we're not able to fix something and it has to be replaced, or any state mandates specifically that would affect our IT budgeted costs, those like to sneak up on us occasionally from the state through how they decide that information from the courts and or the sheriff's office and jail need to be submitted to them. Revenues are at 3.9% of budgeted, and our expenses overall are at 15.11. In our special funds, the law library is trending approximately 2.81% over what they are budgeted for. So I will slap on, that's your favorite, I know.
Oh, no, I just curious. No, since it's over and we've got new billing rates, are those new billing rates lower or higher? I think
They're
we were doing
lower,
them
they are lower, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep, they're about 20% lower. So I'm hoping that in the next 2 months, we'll see that even back out again based on that, so.
That's what I thought, thank you.
Yep. The child care fund is currently below budget by $97,741.75. However, the state of Michigan, as I mentioned, they are notorious for running several months behind on their billing. So this definitely is not a static number we can count on, but it's probably pretty close. Sheriff's Road Patrol and E911 have their winter millage collections already, and so their current revenues reflect roughly 60% of millage money collected. Millage monies are approximately 85% for both of those departments for what they bring in for revenue. You have any questions that I can answer? Or try to answer or get information for and come back?
You want me to ask any?
Jody.
Sure, if you want. And if there's anything else that you'd like to see as we start to go through this process, or any information, just please let me know. I just want to make it so it's something that you guys have the information that you need to do your jobs for. Yes.
The number one job for the commissioners obviously is the budget. We obviously have an exemplary crew with Jody, Noel, and see, Julie's not here, but I'd like to thank them personally and professionally for such a good job. And also the department heads and employees for doing such a good job. Thank you.
I agree with Mr. Milburn's statement.
I agree with Mr. Milburn's statement as well.
Yes.
Okay, we don't have any motions or resolutions. Any public comment? Yes.
Over my glasses, I'm getting old. One thing that I think that the board needs to consider, if you're gonna talk about an August millage or whatever you're gonna discuss in the future, is that I think that there's a lot of uncertainties out there for taxpayers right now. I think that might have come back at you hard on a couple of the proposed millages that failed. What I'm hearing from people in general is that with the uncertainties of multiple SADs out there and the amount that's going to be charged for those SADs are still sort of out in the wind, and a lot of different people saying a lot of different numbers. And I think they're very scared at this point to support any kind of a millage for any reason, really. And I think there's some pushback, to be honest with you, that I'm not going to approve a millage. I'm not going to vote for a millage. Whether I think it's a good idea or not, I'm not going to vote for it until these other things are taken care of. So if you're faced with a sewer millage or a dam millage or whatever villages or millage SADs that are out there, these proposed SADs that may come back at you and you don't know what that final number is going to be, but you see your tax bill, and that was another problem. A lot of the tax bills came out just in time for people to go in and I don't get to pull a crank anymore, but to write in a yes or no. And I think that they saw those bills and said, holy shit, sorry, holy cow. Apologize, Mark. They said to themselves, man, my taxable, not my taxable value, but my overall amount that they think my property is worth just went up an astronomical amount. Luckily, I got saved by Headley, but it's still going to be a big tax bill, an increase on that tax bill. And then now I get a chance to go vote against something, whether I agree with it or not. Here's my opportunity to push back. And I'm not going to support that until these other things are taken care of and I find out, am I going to be taxed through the SAD process in the future? So I just think that was a lot of the pushback. I'm actually looking through right now, township by township, of what those numbers were. Maybe the townships that don't have those proposed SADs in them, maybe they show a little better or a little improved outlook on those countywide millages. Maybe they were in support of them in those townships. But then when you move over to the townships that have these unknown SADs floating around, they may have more strongly opposed those millages in those townships. It's just that air of uncertainty, I think. Combine all those perfect storm kind of things together where there's these SADs that are out there that nobody knows the final numbers on. You guys are still talking about whether you're going to cover some of the cost of the SADs for the dams, are you going to cover some of the legal costs and engineering costs leading up to the actual cost of construction? That's a wild hair for people. So I'm going to get a bill next month where they're gonna ask for everybody to kick in a couple $100 to cover the cost of engineering and legal fees. Is where this process going on, or am I safe from that at least for the next year? And then how long are these SADs gonna be proposed for, and how much are they gonna be? I think it's just a sort of a perfect storm that may have hit you on a couple of big asks. People can go outside and see that there's no leaves left on their trees. So we got to get rid of the spongy moth. They can see that. Now, that's self-interest. I know I've got to do something. You probably had a better shot at that one, but that's all I've got. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? If no, make a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.